Welcome to Pool Elementary, and as always, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to see all of our other pool videos. And today we're going to be changing out a pump seal on a Pentair Whisperflo. If your pool pump is leaking water in between the actual motor and the motor plate, chances are it's the pump seal. And in order to change this out, first you're going to want to pull these drain plugs on the actual pump to drain the water out. This pump has two of them. And that way when you loosen up these bolts on this pump plate and the wet end, you don't have a big flash of water coming out. The next step is we're going to remove all 6 of these bolts holding this motor onto the wet end. You're going to need a 9/16 wrench because the socket doesn't really fit in these top ones on these newer motors. And then on this one you'll need a socket and maybe even a 9/16 wrench so you can hold the actual bolt and the nut. So with this, we'll go ahead and loosen these up. And then we'll go ahead and use our 9/16 wrench to hold this bolt. And we'll just loosen it up with this socket. Like so. We'll go ahead and loosen up our bottom one. Now we can just take this motor and slide it right out. And as you can see, covering up our impeller is the actual diffuser. So the next step is we're going to take this diffuser off to access the impeller. And with this, it has two little Allen wrench screws in it. And I just use a 3/32 Allen wrench to loosen these up. And that's it. If you don't have this Allen wrench to fit these, they do have a little bit of a roughness, some etching on the outside of them, where you can get a hold of them with a little pair of channel locks also. And then we can pull our diffuser off. Now that we have access to our impeller, on the Whisperflos, there's actually a locking screw on the inside of this impeller. So if we were to try to lock the motor and twist this off, it wouldn't come. So with this threaded screw, it's a reverse thread. So lefty's tighty, righty's loosey. So you'll want to turn it to the right to loosen it, and to the left to tighten it. With our screw out, now we need to lock this motor so we can twist our impeller off. On these Pentair motors, on the newer ones, it takes a 1/4 inch Allen wrench. You can actually put this in here and it'll actually lock the shaft. On the older ones, you can just use a large screwdriver, or it's I believe a 1/2 inch wrench will fit over the top of them. So now that the Allen wrench is in the motor actually locking it, you can try to do it by hand. This one came loose. If for some reason it's too hard to get off by hand, you can take a bigger pair of channel locks and grab this front cone of the actual impeller and give it a quick turn to loosen it up. So now that our impeller's off, we're going to go ahead and finish taking off the actual pump motor plate here. And there's going to be another 4 9/16 bolts holding that on. And then we'll be able to remove this whole housing off of the actual motor shaft. So once again, we'll use our 9/16 wrench to get inside here and get these loosened up. So with our 4 bolts out of the back side of this motor going onto the plate seal, we just slip this right off. So now that our seal plate's off and our impeller's here, we want to get these old seals out. To get this pump seal out of this seal plate, you can actually take your 9/16 socket and set it in there and give it some taps. It should pop it right out. After getting that seal out, you're going to want to make sure that this orifice in here is all cleaned out. Sometimes you might have to take a wire brush a little bit and just get that all cleaned out and get all the calcium and the buildup off that and in the back side. With our seal plate gasket, we'll set that aside. So now comes the tricky part. So this end of the pump seal that's actually pressed into the impeller, sometimes these can be a little bugger to get out. I like to just go around easily with a screwdriver and just kind of push it into the gasket a little bit and just give it a little pry up. And this should get it loose enough to where it'll come out. So As you can see, this part of the pump seal, the ceramic up, this just kind of pushes into that actual footing of the impeller. On these Pentair Whisperflos, they do take a PS1000 pump seal. If you want the part numbers, the genuine Pentair parts, these ceramic seals are 071734S, and the actual mechanic style one of these is 071732S. The difference between the ceramic and mechanical, the mechanical does better with pools that are saltwater and maybe have an ozone on them, where the ceramic works good for just your general pool using chlorine. I will have all the different pump seals and O-rings and pump gaskets and their part numbers down in my description box, and there's also a quick link for easy purchase. So pushing this side of the pump seal down into the impeller, you want to do it with something soft that's even and push it in, or you can actually just put some paper towels over it and push it in. And you just want it to look just how it was when you took it out, just a little bit of a lip of the rubber showing, and even all the way around. And then we know that that's in there nice and flat. Now comes the backside that actually goes into the seal plate. On this actual pump seal piece that goes in there, there's actually a little lip that goes around here. And I like to put just a small bead of 100% silicone around the edge of that. Not too much, because we don't want to get any silicone on any part of this pump seal besides this little lip here. And that's it. This silicone takes about 24 hours to dry, so we'll make sure that we let our pump set for at least overnight before we prime it up and fire it up. So now that we got a nice little ring around that, we can go ahead and place it directly above the hole that it goes into. And then with a 1-inch coupling or slip to slip, we can actually slip that over there, and it's going to fit directly over top of our pump seal. We can normally push this in now with just our weight most of the way, and as you can see, it went in pretty much all the way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put that 1-inch coupling over that, and I'm just going to give it a tap with something just to make sure she's seated properly. So I'll just work my way around it like so. And now that seal is seated properly, and we didn't get any silicone on any of the parts. If we did, we want to wipe all that off with a nice cloth and make sure that it's free of any silicone. So now that our pump seals are in place, you want to check on the inside of this impeller where you took that actual screw out that holds it on. There's a little rubber washer in there. You want to make sure this is in good condition, because this is what's going to keep the water from passing that screw and coming out the backside of the actual shaft itself. And that's it. If you need this little rubber O-ring washer that's in there, it's going to be part number 075713. So make sure that's in good condition also. The next step is to put our seal plate back onto the actual motor. And that's just those 4 short 9/16 bolts. I like to thread these in as far as I can by hand, so that way it's not too much of the wrench work. And 9/16 wrench. Just make these nice and snug. Don't want to go too tight. There's really no moving parts on them, so they just have to be snug. Now that our seal plate's back on, it's time to put our impeller on. And once again, we're going to want to lock the actual motor shaft. And this one actually has a 1/4 inch Allen wrench, and some of the other ones actually are accessible just through the back, like I said, with a 1/2 inch wrench. Some have a screwdriver, flathead type fitting, and also some of the older motors, they actually have the plastic shroud over there, so you might need a 1/4-inch nut driver to take that actual back cap off of the motor to access that back end of that shaft. Just thread that back on. Get most of the way on there. And then we're going to lock that motor shaft with our 1/4-inch Allen wrench or our 1/2-inch wrench, whatever style motor you have. And on this, you just want to thread it down, and you just want it nice and snug and tight. It's not going to go anywhere. Now we'll attach our locking screw here, and remember, counterclockwise is tightening, so we'll turn it to the left to tighten it down, and we'll just make sure that's nice and snug. Next step is our actual diffuser, and on this diffuser it does have the diffuser gasket on it, and this part number is going to be 355227Z. You want to make sure that's in good shape. I like to apply a silicone O-ring lubrication to this, and here I'm just using some Pentair Rainbow silicone O-ring lubricant. Any O-ring lubricant will work, and you just want to make sure this is all nice and lubed up. It'll help it last longer. So with that in place, then we'll just line up our 2 screws that we took off with our 3/32 Allen wrench, and you can see there's 2 brass fittings that they go on. So, and there's also some pins on the around it that'll lock it in. So we'll go ahead and tighten these down. Alright, with those tightened down, we've pretty much reversed all the steps on this motor. Last, you're going to want to inspect this seal plate gasket. And there's 2 different kinds of these gaskets. Normally they're either black or they're an almond color. And I'll have both part numbers for each of these in the description box down below. But you want to inspect these also. Sometimes they'll be smashed in there and there'll be actual flat spots. So it's best just to replace these if there are some smash spots where you know they're not going to get a good seal on there. And you'll want to add that O-ring lubricant to these 2 and make sure they're all lubed up before putting them in. Or if you just don't take, it doesn't come out and the one that's in here looks like it's sufficient, just apply a little bit more of that O-ring lube around it so it seats nice. So with that, we can slide our motor back in, and we'll get our 2 top screws started. And once our top bolts are hand tight, go ahead and thread our middle bolt through. Remember those washers on the actual back side or the motor side of the pump. So when I tighten these bolts down, I like to tighten them evenly. I'll just kind of cinch them around, kind of jumping kitty corner, so top right to bottom left, and then I'll do my centers, you know, bounce back and forth, just so it goes on evenly. Now that we have all of our 9/16 bolts back into our motor plate and they're nice and snug, if you haven't already put your shroud on the back of your motor, time to do it. It's just a 1/4-inch nut driver. And the last thing we're going to do is put in our drain plugs that we pulled. And then we're going to let this sit overnight and let that silicone on that actual pump seal that we put in dry. And then we can prime it up and fire it up tomorrow. Thanks for joining us with Pool Elementary on our Pentair Whisperflo pump seal replacement. If you liked the video, make sure you smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to catch all of our other videos, and we'll see you next time.